How would it feel to have a thriving fitness business and have the freedom to enjoy life at the fullest? Well, that is exactly what the Trainer Revenue Multiplier show is going to give you. My name is Mathew Park. This is Jaime Filer.
Hey guys.
And we are here to serve.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Trainer Revenue Multiplier podcast. As always, I am your host, Jaime Filer, and I am joined by Isaac Miller. We have a special edition of the Coach's Corner today, which we're both really excited about. It's always a good time when we get to dive into kind of client case studies and figure out how to help you help your own business through others' experiences. Isaac, how's your day been so far?
It's been fantastic. I cannot complain. Things are going well. How's life over there? I know you're traveling right now, so
we are. Yeah. Obviously, there's always a different background for the podcast. I'm in Denver, Colorado this week because Katie competes in a bodybuilding show on Saturday.
Hey, well, good luck to Katie. But she won't need it.
I know she'll crush it. She's always like that. All right, so let's dive in because we have a pretty awesome case. I mean, they're all awesome, but we have a pretty unique case study in that this woman has pivoted, I don't know, more times than Steph Curry, if we want to use that fun basketball pun. Isaac, where would you like to start?
Yeah, so I know the journey of this kind of TRM member of ours has always been an upward trajectory, but granted, life events happen for all of us, right? Like we can't prevent life from lifing. Some of those are great. Some of those are not so great. But in the world of business doesn't really care about what's going on in our life. We still have to have it run. Yeah, we still have to business because it is its own kind of entity, its own life form, right? And so luckily, her life event was positive. She was pregnant and having a child, and that's an amazing thing. But with that, she wanted to prioritize her life in terms of making sure this pregnancy was good, was healthy, and then had time to actually be present with her family even after the baby was born. And so that took her stepping away from her business pretty significantly, but yet it still grew. It still scaled. It still made all of her clients happy.
Yeah.
Could you talk me through what the process was like coaching her, before this life event happened? And then that mindset shift of okay, now I need to reprioritize how I operate the business to help it grow.
Yeah, I'll start by saying, because you know me, Isaac, there's always a strategic answer and a psychological answer. Psychologically speaking, I think what this client had going for her was that she never worried about it, right? Like as soon as you find out you're pregnant, it just is, right? Like when you find out you're going to be a mom and you want to be a mom, then you just accept the rest. And I don't want to say let go and let God, because again, then we come to the strategy part, but she was not worried about her business at all. She's like, baby is from now on, right? Like as soon as you become pregnant, and then of course have the baby, your life isn't about you anymore. And you know that, right? To an extent. And so I just applaud her for how quickly she pivoted her mind to the I'm not freaking out. Anything that's going to happen after that, in terms of my business is going to come second to the health and well-being of my baby. And we're just going to figure it out from there. So then the strategy part. First thing is, Sam, what are you doing that you don't need to be doing? Right? Because delegation, because time, energy, and attention are going to be at a premium. So we had to figure out, first thing we did was figure out high and low leverage tasks. So is this admin stuff that she's doing that she doesn't need to be doing? Is this training clients in person? Is this doing all her virtual boot camps? What does she need to keep her face on and her body in during these next 9 months, and then obviously postpartum as well.
Love that. And so when looking at those time wasters and those low leverage activities, and it's easy for us to say what's high and low leverage now,
Yeah.
but then obviously when that life event happens, it might shift what was high leverage before
Right.
to now
Yeah.
being low leverage. So were there any instances where it was like something that she did see as a high leverage task that then shifted to being a low leverage task?
She hired an assistant coach to help run some of her challenges, and train and do some of her classes, because she just realized that her body didn't need to be in there. Right? Like, especially for a group exercise or a group challenge, it's not like you're doing one-to-one check-ins. It's not like you're meeting with these people and giving them 60 minutes of your time, almost like therapy style. So I don't want to say it didn't matter who taught the class. Obviously, she still needed people with, big personalities and who knew a thing or two about exercise phys and again, like just trained in a similar style, but it didn't need to be her. The other thing is sending emails, sending follow-ups, doing social media reach outs. She has an assistant for that. I don't recall one of the last times she's mentioned she did a check-in.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this event of having a child actually caused, in my perspective, a shift from being a solopreneur to being an actual like business owner,
Yeah.
and now having people help operate the business.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that everyone ends up being faced with if they want to grow a business, right? Like you have to be able to stop being the solopreneur
Yeah.
and actually utilize and lead a team. But it was cool to see how like most people stress about that, right? Like you've worked with a
Yeah.
lot of clients. How many people stress about making their first hire?
Oh my gosh, all of them. I want to get the hire perfect. I want to get the SOP perfect. I want it right. Like everything has to be so perfect. And then finally, often they throw their hands up and they say, you know what? It's just easier if I do it. Like, I don't need a virtual assistant. It takes me 3 minutes to send DMs. Like, I'll just keep doing it. Okay. But 3 minutes times every single day of your life. Like, I mean, so yeah, I'm not going to say eager, but she just knew that giving up and delegating certain tasks that were no longer serving her was part of this new hat she was wearing.
I love it. Now, during this process, the 9 months, right? We got to keep up with the wins that were
Yeah.
happening. And I remember like her first month of kind of like stepping away from the business a little bit. She came
Yeah.
to a call and she was like, I can't believe it, but I've gained like, it was like 3 or 4 clients like that week.
Yeah.
And she's like, I didn't do any of it. Like they're like, my team's doing great. Like everyone's being done like and treated amazingly and they're happy and the systems are running well. And she brought up the systems specifically. So how much did systems play a role in her being able to kind of step away and still let this operate efficiently?
So great question, because systems were essential because of the different model and areas of making money she pivoted to, right? Like, she has these Kangoo classes. So a lot of people sign up and it's in person and it's virtual and you hop on these things and she like teaches the class, right? And then she has a challenge going, and that's something that she runs on a recurring basis. And she has a domestic retreat that's within Canada, but she also has an international retreat that she's navigating, working with another company with. So there isn't, I mean, honestly, because her business model isn't really one-to-one anymore, it's one to many. She needed systems to be able to communicate with people and not drop the ball on anyone. So I don't know if she would have been able to do it without systems. That's the first thing. Systems in terms of like using the TR engine to automate and book and calendar and this and that. But she also had a system of follow-up. Like at what point in the challenge does she schedule the re-entry call? Or at what juncture in the pre-challenge does she message all the old people who have participated who haven't signed up yet, right? So she created her own little system of scheduling almost that really served her. So we have the automation system. Oh, and then of course systems with when she's going to work, her own calendar, her own, when does she spend time with her baby? When does she spend time with her husband? When does she spend time on self-care? And then of course, when does she work in her business? So there's no area of her life, I'd say, that wasn't systemized because of her business model and honestly, her life model.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. So when looking at the systems, right, and in theory, we all look at this and think like, oh yeah, systems, automations, whatever. When hearing her talk about how those systems played out, it was clear that she had a good grasp on all the aspects of her business and
Yeah.
the lifespan of a client within each of those. So how much work was spent in actually mapping out what that client journey was like so that, y'all knew what to systemize?
So the best part of this was the challenge, because it just makes it so easy. That's her bread and butter, honestly. The challenge is an 8-week program that she runs multiple times per year. And it's just so, oh my gosh, like what's the way? Like, I don't want to say black and white because that makes it sound like stoic and monotonous, but she knows when it starts. Again, like I said, like she knows when her automations, text messages go out. She knows when her community calls are and how to send feedback. It was just so like, again, it goes back to her business model. Like she is one of those clients, Isaac, where I believe she could walk away from her business in no more than 3 years. Like it's just so systemized, but of course, still with that element of personality to it. So no one feels like they're losing anything. And she only really needs to show up for her retreats because that's what one of the things people are paying for. Like, yeah, they're paying for Bali or Thailand or BC, sure. But they're also paying for her to host the masterminds and the seminars and they're expecting to see her. But she really doesn't need to be particularly involved in her business anymore.
I love it. And with that, it kept growing, like it kept building. So it's safe to say that the client experience never dipped.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
ever.
Would you say that the number, and this might be my own bias from people that I've coached, but what would you say is the number one fear of stepping away? Is it the often common told, like, I need to be the face of my business, I need to do everything, or is there something deeper?
I think it's, what will people expect if I'm not the one that shows up? Right? Because again, she's in a lot of her marketing. Oh, this reminds me, that was the other thing I was going to say about systems. What was so crucial for Sam to do was because she knew that both her health and her energy were going to experience highs and lows. This woman made like 4 months of social media posts and email newsletters in advance. Yeah, the way she scheduled posts and wrote them was, again, it's yet another system. And then either she or her assistant would float them out to emails and Instagrams. But yeah, I remember she's like, yeah, I've scheduled the next 20 weeks of social media. I said, you did what? But again, incredible, like great system. Okay. So fears of entrepreneurs. Yes, of course we have what will people think if I'm not the one coaching them? Which is your ego talking. And that's okay. We've all been there. We've all had it until you realize there's someone out there who can do it better than you can. And we appreciate them for that. I think another one is, especially with a new baby on the way and another mouth to feed, is, man, can I afford to put someone on my payroll? Right? Because I'm literally incurring another expense. It's sitting inside of me. And now my margins are going to be even smaller. Right? So now I'm paying for whatever overhead. Now I'm paying for payroll and then taxes on that payroll. That's another fear that entrepreneurs experience.
I can't agree more. And
Yeah.
that's something that, is oftentimes emotional,
Yeah.
sometimes a real fear, but
Yeah.
oftentimes emotional.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time where you kind of force someone or strong arm them to actually look at their profit loss statement and see that, like, the room they have and where their
Yeah.
bottleneck is actually themselves?
So there are two people whom we've gone over profit and loss with. And I think without knowing, right, what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. But what does it mean? Like if I say your margins for labor, marketing, and expenses should be this, this, and this, it also comes down to, but what do you want to come away with at the end of the day? Right? Like what is your quality of life? Do you know how much a baby costs? Do you know how much your life costs, right? Do you know what your fixed and variable expenses are? So we, in this client's case in particular, we did not go over profit and loss. I think it's also different when you have a partner versus being it's just you bringing in the income. But I think in general, it is so important to manage honestly how much is going out, not just how much is going in. Like if we're to redo or revamp the TRM metric sheet, which I know is kind of overwhelming for a lot of our newer trainers, I would add those three areas as well. How much are you spending on marketing, spending on labor, and how much are you spending on overhead?
Yep, 100%. Absolutely. And that's something that, I've been going through with one of my mentees just even this week was like,
Yeah.
you're working all the time. How about some of the stuff that you're trying to just do throughout the day, we offboard, even if it's like laundry for your massage,
Right.
clinic, or
Yeah.
maybe a house cleaner, because you're trying to keep up with dishes and stuff while both you and your husband are working. Like you
Yeah.
could like pay that out. So instead of being on your phone at 9 at night, you can actually relax with your husband for a few minutes, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's really important. Now, going into the 28 weeks of content, I struggle to batch create a week, right? So
All right.
what was it that allowed her to be able to understand what content like this should be? How deep did you guys dive into the core pillars and the ideal
Yeah.
client and like all of that?
Yeah. So this is the good thing. And one of the reasons I think, I don't know, what would you say, Isaac? Like literally 1 out of every 4 modules I teach either references ideal client avatar, marketing message, USP, right? This is why we put such an emphasis on TRM is so that you can create content as long as you keep your ideal client avatar, you can create 365 days of content. Using warm bucket messaging, cold bucket messaging, problem aware, solution aware, desire for change, testimonials, right? Like there's so many different pieces of content. There's such a different variety of content that you can post. There should be no reason why, if you have 5 clients on your roster right now, you can't create 5 months of content using their goals, hopes, and dreams, why they came to you in the first place, their pain points, frustrations, and challenges, and then their every 4 weeks progress as testimonials and case studies. Like, honestly, no trainer has an excuse not to create a minimum of 2 weeks of content in advance without worrying about, well, what will the future hold? Nothing. You're still going to be training these people 4 months from now. I promise you.
Yep, I love it. Now, going into that, I'll play a little devil's advocate.
Yeah.
But you're going to have some people say like, "Oh, that's great, Jamie. That's awesome." But the algorithm's always changing. There's always going to be new trends. How can I make all this stuff in advance and then, my reach will be diminished because I'm not keeping up with the trends and the algorithm. So
Yeah.
what would you say to that person, because that's clearly just an excuse not to just sit down and batch create, a couple
Oh,
weeks
I
of
see what it
posts.
is. Right. I like that you called yourself out on the devil's advocacy as well, which I respect. There are always different ways to get around an algorithm, right? Like you can use, Okay, so you can create it in advance, but that doesn't mean you've posted it. So the trending audio will change. You might use different SEO keywords, right? Hashtags aren't a big deal anymore, but you still might revise some of the hashtags, which is totally fine. But the truth is, Isaac, at the end of the day, Instagram was, is, and always will be a photo and video platform. So as long as you provide a relatively high quality, raw, vulnerable education, inspiration, and entertaining form of content, it doesn't matter what Meta does with the algorithm. That's what I believe.
Love it. I love that answer. Okay, awesome. So we've made it through obviously her pregnancy, and the systems are built. She has this good process in place. Her team is running on high, and everything's good, and she's building. And now that she has her baby and her husband, and like everything's good, and she's able to keep off that kind of proverbial gas pedal and still be growing, where does that take her? Where does that take anybody who's in that position where they're now able to actually run a business and breathe at the same time? There's many entrepreneurs, we get that stress of like, it's like Ricky Bobby, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like I'm just staring into the camera. So what would you tell her or any coach who's in that position where they can actually breathe now and see freedom from that entrepreneurial grind mentality? What do we do with that?
Oh gosh, this is a podcast where we should have Alvin on, because that's a mindset thing, right? Like, hey, I finally got my dream. Now what? Maybe I should jeopardize it. Maybe I should self-sabotage it. Maybe I should like stir the pot and muck it up again. Because that's what we do as entrepreneurs, right? Something's going really, really well. We're like, this doesn't seem right. How can I break it? But again, Sam was never like that. She's just so grounded and level-headed, which is how she also got into doing more of these retreats. So rather than just running a year, it was one domestic and one international. Because it gives her the opportunity to travel, which is amazing, especially as a mom, but also more reach, right? She can finally do all the things she's always wanted to do on a grand scale. The other thing is she gets to go back to why she wanted to make all that money and have a particular business model in the first place, right? Like when we do TRM and you create your old and new version, or you create your 7 layers of why, what happens when you finally get it? Right? Go back to it, realize why it was so important to you not to jeopardize or self-sabotage, and then just sit in that for a moment.
I love that. I think too often entrepreneurs have that why that drives them, but then once they actually reach it, they don't do the due diligence to actually go back and appreciate that they've accomplished what they set out to do. And that is where that self-sabotage and those negative things happen. And I also, just to take away from her kind of specific thing, there were parts of her business that are still mentally and intellectually stimulating, i.e. like the retreats. Like she has a domestic and a international retreat, and retreats in and of itself, just ask Aram with Real Coaches Summit, right? Like they're a beast in and of itself to run and to scale and to grow. Then to be able to go travel the world and do things that you've dreamed of doing as a kid and young adult, like that's something that hard. So even though her business has gotten to a point where she can kind of step away, it seems like she's still able to stay engaged and happy with this process and not get bored.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So she's doing the damn thing, as the kids say. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And one thing too, just to touch on with the what's next question. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Sean, and he was a world champion 24-hour mountain bike racer. Like would do 24-hour races in the mountains. Like he's an animal. He was Canadian Special Forces. Like the dude was amazing. And he coaches world champion mountain bike racers. And he said the first thing he asks them after they finish a race is what's next. Because he doesn't want them to self-sabotage. He doesn't want them to go back to negative habits and behaviors from before training. And he's like, even if it's not racing, even if that was their last race, they still need to think what's next. They need to think forward. They need to think positive. They need to have something, because as athletes, and a lot of us coaches are athletes, once we quit doing the thing that we were doing, there's like this hole there that we try and fill, right? Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought up the what's next. And I love that, she's been able to still keep a part of her business that is that intellectually stimulating thing.
For sure. Awesome. Isaac, fantastic interview, guys. I hope you all got something out of this, whether it was the mindset, the strategy, ideas about how to systemize, how to not jeopardize your business once you get what you actually want, all of it. Isaac, phenomenal interview. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, Jamie, and I appreciate TRM for giving us the platform to do this. There's so much gold in these. And it comes to show, like, if someone's listening to this that's gone or going through a similar situation, we have such an amazing community of so many coaches that have probably been in that exact same situation and gone through it and had positive experience on the other side. So there's so much gold here.
Amazing. Guys, if you like what you heard, make sure you rate, share, subscribe. Find us at Trainer Revenue Multiplier. Make sure that you leave us a review so we can keep providing gold. And until the next episode, have the best rest of your day. See you later.